Hi everyone, Marissa here. This week we're going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you and walk you through an actual blog post that I write for clients. We're going to talk about the 6 essential elements that you need in a blog post for it to convert for you, for it to take potential leads and turn them into clients. So stay tuned, and when you come back, I'll be sharing my screen. All right, now you guys should be seeing my screen here. And this is an actual outline that I'm in the middle of writing. It's very much a rough draft, but it's still something I'm going to use to show you guys the 6 essential elements of a blog post that converts. This is for a client named Sonia, and Sonia sees millennial women and also up into 30s and 40s. So a certain age range, and she sees them, her ideal client is somebody who has youngish kids, not brand new babies, but maybe, 8 years old, 10 years old. And for the past decade, they've really just been giving themselves to their family. And now they're really struggling with who are they and what is their identity and how do they find a bit of themselves inside the crazy world that they've created. So this blog post that I'm walking you through today is all about how she helps them figure out what really matters in their lives and learn to say no to the things that don't. So, like I said, we're talking about 6 essential elements to a blog post that converts today. And that first element I want to teach you guys about is the headline. Okay, so remember, I said a rough draft. So this is not a perfect headline, it's just a working headline for right now. But this says, my 3-step process for learning to say yes to the things that really matter and no to the things that don't, right? A really, really great tool that I want to tell you guys about is by CoSchedule, and it's their headline analyzer. So if you just Google CoSchedule and headline, or headline tool or headline analyzer or something like that, it will pop up. But what it does is you go ahead and you copy and paste a rough draft title like this that you see here. You paste it in there, and CoSchedule does 2 things for you, which is really awesome. It makes your headline more SEO friendly. So it helps you with keywords for SEO, and it also makes it more clickable, more enticing. Because without a headline that makes people want to read it, the rest of your blog post is kind of useless. You could have the most beautifully, eloquently written or niche, nailed-on, targeted blog post, and if nobody clicks on it to read it, then it's not going to do anything for you. What I like to kind of compare the headlines to is, remember, like back in the day, like the 1920s, back in the day, where there'd be the little boy on the corner and he'd be like, extra, extra, read all about it. Stock market crashes, people jump from windows, right? So the headline needed to be something that somebody could yell out, and it would make people on the street stop and turn and go buy a paper. So that's the same thing that you're trying to do here, except you're competing with Facebook, you're competing with everything in the world. So our lives are so much more inundated with content and inundated with just like noise and distractions that somebody standing on the street corner probably wouldn't even get our attention anymore. So if you are wondering what the most important element of your blog posts are, it is probably the title or the headline. So that's why I'm saying it is the first essential thing you need to go ahead and have if you want a blog post to convert. Okay, so if we're going to move on here, we're going to go to the hook. And before we get started with the hook, I want to point something out to you guys. A lot of people ask me, how do I write a 2,000 word blog post? And I'm going to show you guys that along the way. So not only are we going to be talking about the conversions of your blog post, we're going to be talking about how do we get it to 2,000 words plus. And you want 2,000 words because that's when Google really starts paying attention to the content on your site. 2,000 plus words. And so many people just freak out at that, and they're like, there's no way I can write a 2,000 word blog post every week. And I'm going to show you that it really is possible once you learn how to do this step and learn these essential elements and how to break them down. So if you'll see right down here, if you can follow my cursor and follow it right here, this is only an outline, and it's 1,722 words. So by the time I flush this out, this is going to be well around 2,000 words, perfectly fine. So I'm going to show you how I do that, as well as how I make the blog post convert. So if our headline was our first essential element, then our hook, right here you can see hook, is our second essential element. And now your hook is your headline is what makes somebody click on your post, and your hook is what it's called, hooks the reader, grabs their attention, and makes them want to read the entire rest of the post. Your hook should be uplifting, your hook should be inspiring, your hook should be promising that when they do seek help with their issue or their concern, that life will get better. A really great analogy example for this is a TV show, a dramatic TV show. And we know that it's broken down into scenes, right? And in that very first scene, we're kind of introduced to the characters. We catch back up from them, what they've done from the last show. And then right before commercial, some kind of shoe drops, right? And we're like, oh! And then we're like, I have to watch the rest of this episode. I have to watch the rest of this episode now. So that is what a hook is. All of this in front of your hook is setting the stage. Like, yeah, la, 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 this character did this week, and blah, 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 like we were just talking about. And then hook, like bam, okay? So let's explore this section a little bit. If I go ahead and highlight it here, and we go back and look at our word count, this is about 435 words of my 1,722. You want your hook to not be the longest section of the blog post, but a longer section of the blog post. This is where we're just warming everybody up. I like to do this starting with some universal statements. And these are universal statements that are going to resonate with your ideal client and make them feel like, yep, she gets me, he understands what I'm going through, speaking my language, right? So for Sonia, something that we say here is, have you ever found yourself automatically saying yes to something and then immediately thinking, what the hell did I just get myself into? Okay, so that right there, very first sentence resonates with our ideal client. And some other tips, this sounds like Sonia. What the hell did I just get myself into? Sonia would say this in session. Sonia has said this in session. It's very authentic to her. So when somebody reads it in a blog post from her and then eventually schedules and becomes a client of hers and they hear her talking this way, it's congruent. So if you would never say that in a blog post, don't put it. If you would never say that in session, don't put it. But again, we want to create an experience for our clients. It's a branded experience from the very first time they land on our website. Very first content they read from us has to make sense for what they're going to see in session. Okay, so start off with a universal statement. Okay, there's so much pressure on women today to say yes to everything. That's a universal statement, right? It's going to resonate with her ideal client. Okay, much of this is an external pressure, how we appear to others. If you see right here, I'm using Beyonce births twins, right? So again, she sees millennial clients. So they all know about Beyonce and that she just had twins or whatever, you know? This is where you can throw in pop culture references, or you can throw in anecdotes. Another fun thing I like to do in this section of the blog post is if there's something particular to your area, like is there a coffee shop in San Francisco? Phil's Coffee is, you know, really popular with San Francisco locals. So that would really resonate with them. So in this hook part, you're warming them up, you're buttering them up, you're getting them to like you and trust you and be like, yeah, I like this blog post, this is so neat. So how can we throw in little details in this part that are going to make the client feel warm, comfortable, like they like us, okay? And then here we're starting to turn it around a little bit, but if we're honest with ourselves, the external pressure pales in comparison to how much we push ourselves. We're terrified what others will think, la 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 la. Saying yes may give instant gratification and a sense of relief, but we end up resentful, we forfeit our sense of self, blah, blah, blah. So we've painted that picture, and then here's our hook. Boom, we're hooking them, and we're saying, that's not to say we should never do anything for others or that our needs and wants are always more important than our loved ones, but we have to find a balance between constantly saying yes for the sake of pleasing others and saying no to help ourselves. Here we go, we're about to bait them, right? It's entirely possible to find more meaning in what we're doing with our time when we learn to be purposeful and live in sync with our values. There's your hook. You've inspired them. You've told them it's possible. You've told them change can happen if they take the right steps. Okay? So the hook is section number 2. Essential element number 3 is where this is a shorter section. Okay? These next 2 sections are rather short. And this number 3 is where we paint the picture of what their life would look like if they don't get help, or if they don't make changes, and if they don't start to see results. So in this case for Sonia, what happens when you can't say no? She's painting the picture of this life. We don't start out to utterly sacrifice ourselves. We agree to do something. At first, we might just be doing a favor for somebody. At first, we might just say, yeah, I've got some time, whatever. But eventually we start to get a twinge every time we're approached to do something, because we're giving over a bit more of ourselves. It starts to feel icky. We don't want to say yes, but then we feel like we have to because we're people pleasers and blah, blah, blah. And so then it says what's really going on is blank, blank, blank. So we're painting the picture of what life looks like when we continue to live this way, when we continue to live with anxiety, when we continue to live depressed, when we continue to be stuck in our grief, or whatever presenting problems you help clients deal with. This is where we say, here's what life looks like if you don't get help. If we don't ever take the initiative to learn how to distinguish between the things we truly want to say yes to and those we don't, we'll continue to say yes at the sacrifice of our happiness, our relationships, and ourselves. So really, really powerful. This is what happens if you don't fix this. You're basically kind of like, shouting at them. And so if we highlight this, this is 318 words, so shorter than our hook. This is a shorter part of the post, but you can see that between the hook and this section already, we're close to 800 words. Most people write blog posts that are less than that for the whole blog post. And those don't do anything for you. Really, it's a waste of your time. If you spend an hour writing a 500-word blog post, you might as well spend 2 or 2.5 writing a 2,000-word blog post, because at least it's going to do something for you. Okay, so we've talked about 3 essential elements so far: the headline, the hook, and the if you don't fix this, if you don't get help section. And so now we're going on to the 4th element, or the 4th essential section, and this is what happens when you do get help. So we're starting to, we've kind of given them a little bit of the morbid picture, or a little maudlin over here, and now we're going into the uplifting, okay? In this case, this is the learn to say yes the right way, okay? When we live life choosing not to say no, we're living in a way that is directed by other people. But when we learn to live life on our own value system and weigh our decisions against what does or doesn't feel good to us, we start to prioritize what really matters, okay? So here we go. This is what it can look like. This is what life can be like if you learn how to do this, right? Being selective with your energy doesn't make you a bitch. So here, again, this is authentic to Sonia. This is something she would say. This is something that when somebody reads this post, they're going to be like, heck yeah, I like Sonia. Or this is kind of a polarizing sentence. Somebody might be like, oh, I don't like that curse word. I'm clicking off of this. And when you're marketing to your niche, you're taking that risk. You're picking the ideal client that you want in your session. So if it's authentic to you to curse and you had somebody in your session that didn't like it and you felt like you were always studying your foot in your mouth, you probably wouldn't enjoy that client, right? And if your whole caseload was like that, imagine how you'd feel when you went home. So this right here, just one sentence in a blog post, is an example of niche marketing, because you're going to repel people, even with just that word. You're going to repel people, but the people who stick around are your real people, right? So it's just a little note about being authentic in your content and also using niche marketing, okay? So then she goes on to say, ultimately, learning to say yes to the right things at the right time and in the right way, we're allowing ourselves to pursue a life of authenticity. Okay, so that's her whole point. That goes back to the hook. She had told us earlier in the hook, it's possible. Now we're saying learning to do this gives this result. Okay, and so let's see how many words this one was. This part of the outline is only 273 words. So again, this is one of the shorter sections. And but by now we're up to close to 1,000 words. So you can see, just breaking it out like this, you've already got it. And this is, like I said, still the outline. So it's really easy to flush this stuff out and make it even longer. Okay. So then the fifth essential element is the education piece. So I like to call this blog post my education blog posts. And these are really, really high converting because they give clients direct action steps to take. They teach them something. They feel like they have gotten a takeaway from this blog post and that they can go and start implementing these things in their lives today and see results today. They also keep you at the forefront of the client's mind, because when they go back to that article, maybe they printed it off, maybe they saved it to their computer or whatever, and they're like, oh crap, what was that one thing I needed to do? And they go back and they look at it, they're looking at you, your website, and your name all over again. So we want to really connect here. And so this is the fifth part of the blog post that's essential for conversion, and this is the education piece. This is the longest part of the blog post. So let's start there and let's just see how many words this outline has, or this section has. Okay. So right here, yeah, you can see this part of the outline is 618 words. So this outline is longer than most blog posts that people write, this section. You want this to be the most in-depth. You want this to be the longest, most actionable part of your blog post. Okay, so we're gonna go back up here and explore it a little bit. Even if people skim the things up top, if they skim your hook, if they skim your what life looks like without help and what life looks like with help, when they get to here, this is where you wanna have the meat of the post, okay? So this is where you can take this a lot of different ways. This can actually be like steps to do, like go do this, action steps. This can also be educational, where you are providing people the reasons why, 5 reasons why you have ambiguous attachment, okay? Or be the reasons why. It can be the fears holding you back, 10 fears holding you back from X, Y, Z. Whatever they are, this is where you get into them. So fears, reasons, explanations, action steps, whatever it is, this is the education part, okay? So for Sonia's case, this is a 3-step process for saying yes in an authentic way. So we give a little bit of a summary here. It's more than simply learning to say no. We don't want ourselves or ourselves to feel denied. But instead, we want to commit our energy and resources in a way that honors the other person. We need to get in touch with exactly what our value system is, blah, blah, blah. Keep reading. This is a really essential sentence here. Keep reading for my 3-step system to help you decide if it's a yes or a no. So that's the education. This is what she's giving their takeaways. Okay? And here she just goes right into them. So number 1, take time before you answer. And then she gives tips about this. Pause instead of blurting out a quick yes or no. Don't worry if the other person gets offended. Phrase your request to more time, blah, blah, blah. So giving a little bit more tips about step number 1. Okay. Step number 2 for her is check in with your values. While you're taking some time to reflect, blah, 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 is your initial reaction to run away and hide. As you continue to reflect, if you realize the request does not align with your values, here's what you do. Okay, so tips about that. Number 3, then you communicate your answer. Whatever you decide to do, there's a way to communicate your answer that's kind and supportive. If you decide to say yes, do this. If you decide to say no, do this. Okay? So again, the most in-depth part of the blog post, the most actionable part, the part that people are going to print off, come back to, remember you for, this is the education piece. Okay? And we're going to go talk now about the final element of the blog post to get it to convert. Without this piece, the whole part doesn't convert. It just turns into a nice little article that was fun to read. But we're not talking about nice little articles that are fun to read. We're talking about high converting blog posts. So here is where you put your call to action. Clients will not read your mind. Clients will not even put 2 and 2 together of reading the post and then calling to schedule you. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 here and there, but if they're not explicitly told what their next steps are, they're going to fill in those blanks. So we need to guide them through our marketing to tell them what their next step is. And for us, that's, hey, come be my client. Come seek help with this. And this isn't skeezy. This isn't like, come be my client. I don't know, like used car salesman. This is literally, I've told you what life will look like if we don't get help here. I've told you what will look like if you can get help. I've given you some steps to do to help yourself. And now I really want to help you. Okay, I want to be the person through my knowledge, my expertise, my experience, I can help you. So that's what the call to action is about, okay? And another quick note on the call to action is it needs to be what you are awesome at. So if you convert really well on the phone, you offer 15-minute consultations, make your call to action be to call you and get on the phone with you. If you convert really well in person and you offer a 10-minute consultation, whatever. If you are working with really, really busy professionals and maybe they rather would just click on a scheduler on your website and do it all online, you can have it linked to that. But basically, your call to action is to tell them what the next step is. And so if you read here, it says, if you're looking for insight into your value system and want to learn to say yes in a way that feels honest and authentic, click here to schedule a session. Okay? We have to ask for the conversion, right? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and come join you guys again. All right. So we talked about what it means to have a high converting blog post. And I also showed you guys how to make sure that you can get that link that Google is looking for out of your blog post. Because if nobody sees it and it can't be found in search, then it's kind of pointless, right? So to recap those 6 elements, the first was a headline, a catchy headline that people want to read and want to click on. The next element of a high converting blog post is the hook. This is what reels people in. This is what makes people say, I want to keep reading this post. Your hook should be inspiring, uplifting, and promise that there is a way out of the client's struggles. The next 2 sections are a bit shorter. The essential elements are number 3 and number 4, and that's where you paint the picture of what life looks like without getting services, without making changes, without seeking help. And then you also paint the picture of what life will look like with help and with seeking out what they need to make these changes, okay? Section number 5 is the big chunk of the entire blog post. This should be the longest piece, and this is your education piece. Again, this can be lots of different things. This can be tips and tricks. This can be reasons why. This can be the fears behind. This can be action steps, anything like that. But this is the tangible piece that people take away from your post and that they feel like they have actually learned something that will help their lives. Okay, and for any high converting blog post, the most essential, or maybe second to most essential element, is that call to action. You have to convert them. You have to ask for the conversion. And that's where you say, please come schedule with me. If you enjoyed this video, I'm really, really excited to tell you guys about a challenge I have coming up. It's starting on Monday, February 26th, and it is the 5 days to a high converting blog post challenge. Each day, we're going to dissect one of these elements of this blog post that I just went through on this video, and I'm going to help you craft it for you, for your practice, and for your ideal client. You'll get a quick little email from me with a lesson explaining what the essential element of the day is, how to achieve it, and then we'll also be able to jump on Facebook Live that day and ask any questions to me live about the challenge. So if that sounds like something that you're really excited about, I know I am, and something that will help you learn to market in your practice, go ahead and click the button below and just sign up. The challenge is completely free, and it'll last the whole week, or not the whole week, 5 days, starting on Monday, February 26th. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and I really hope to see you in the challenge because I know it's going to be awesome. It's just going to be awesome. All right. Thanks, guys.